The Wisconsin Freedom of Information calls on its members to condemn these abuses on the part of the Racine City Attorney's Office and the law firm it has hired to represent it. We also call on Racine Mayor Corey Mason to take a strong public stand against these efforts to deny the public basic information about this legal proceeding. This was sent out to more than 100 newspapers around the country. Good morning. Welcome back to Talking Racine. I'm your host, Dr. Ken Jorgen. See, I don't introduce myself first very often.
You don't, that's right.
I usually introduce you first.
Yeah.
Jim goes second today.
I'm forgotten now?
Yeah. Oh, just hang on, I'll get around that. It's Mr. Jim Spodek, our producer, chief researcher, and Mr. George Myers, third man on the team.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to talk this morning about the Sandra Widener case and some of the history of what has brought us to this point where we're at today. We're going to start out with a letter from Bill Leuters. Is it Leuters or Luters?
Luters, I think.
Luters, president of the Wisconsin Freedom of Information Council. And he writes, "Dear council members and supporters, the latest development in the bizarre open records case in Racine is that the city attorney's office there has denied a newspaper's request for records that would show how much the city is paying for outside legal counsel, saying that these records are also under seal and cannot be released. The lawyers representing the city have also filed under seal a brief opposing the efforts by various representatives of the news media to intervene at the appellate court level for the purpose of opposing the extraordinary secrecy that has been embraced in this case. That means the public, you and me, is being denied the right to know what arguments are being advanced to keep these proceedings over run-of-the-mill email communications top secret. And City of Racine taxpayers are being blocked from learning how much they are paying for these efforts to keep the public in the dark. The Wisconsin Freedom of Information calls on its members to condemn these abuses on the part of the Racine City Attorney's Office and the law firm it has hired to represent it. We also call on Racine Mayor Corey Mason to take a strong public stand against these efforts to deny the public basic information about this legal proceeding." This was sent out to more than 100 newspapers around the country. The Wisconsin Freedom of Information Council is not just three disgruntled old men in a basement somewhere in Racine County. These people are players. These are people who are very, very concerned about the First Amendment. They're concerned about freedom of the press, and they're concerned about open government. And for them to go to this extraordinary effort to mention this is a case that deserves the attention of all freedom-loving people, that's quite a statement.
There's an interesting thing in there. He talks about run-of-the-mill emails. And now, let me get this straight. The emails she's requesting were actually a PowerPoint presentation of the emails, right?
Correct.
And every one of those was presented to the Common Council,
correct,
right, in a closed session.
Right.
So everybody has seen, at least everybody in the council has seen it.
Right.
The problem being is that notes weren't taken. You know, they were being used against Sandy Widener. She didn't have, so she said, "Well, give me I want that PowerPoint presentation in my defense."
Well,
right?
she was not alerted to the fact that she was going to be positioned as a defendant when that meeting was called.
Oh, all right. So she just went to the meeting.
She just went to the meeting, and all of a sudden she's in the hot seat. And now
her yeah, that's right, because two other aldermen were also mentioned in
but
the
that was
in the
just
thing.
fluff to make it look like it
wasn't just,
but it was all Sandy.
It was just a thing.
Right.
So that's the point, is that when it says run-of-the-mill email, it's relatively simple. Now, why are they closing that down, though? Why the big secrecy?
One of the things, what was that last statement where he talks about Corey Mason?
We also call Corey Mason to take a public stand.
Why isn't he taking a public stand?
Well, that's really amazing too, and it's not like, and I'm sure, you know, Scott Ledney's office. That when you go to City Hall, you go in the same doorway for both the city attorney and the mayor's office, so they're right next to each other, and it's not like all this is going on without Corey Mason knowing anything.
Correct.
And it just seems very bold for him to be doing this all on his own. He didn't even get counsel. Am I right? He didn't get counsel permission to spend the money, even on the.
He won't even release the amount that was spent, even though he never got approval to expend the money. He doesn't even want to release the fact that how much has actually been spent.
And silence actually infers compliance or agreement with the city attorney's position.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and for the city attorney to go out like this all on his own, spend all this money, and make all these motions and create this national commotion going on, is a bit strange. I mean, I think he's got some backing in there, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised to find out that Corey Mason says, "Yeah, go on, I'll cover your back."
I'll cover you. Why would you cover?
Yeah,
well, I mean, for what? It's a
let's bring
loser.
Corey Mason into it, and now we get into what you're looking at, Jim.
Right.
There's
We're
some
gonna do a little
depth
digging
behind this. This isn't all about just so many run-of-the-mill emails.
Right.
There's a lot more behind those emails that we'd rather just.
Right.
Not we. Us,
Well, I think what
certain people in the city,
rather keep quiet. Yeah.
power structure,
Yeah.
would rather be kept closed.
Ordinary people in positions of influence
That's right.
and control.
But I think we
People
have
would rather
to go
meet
back.
themselves than impotent, but they've got the right place to pull some pretty powerful strings.
Exactly. So what I want to do is go back to the very beginning, because why is Corey Mason so quiet? I mean, and in a situation like this, the mayor of the city of Racine comes out with no statement, nothing that says it should be stopped, it should be condemned, it should be open, nothing. Well,
And that's not just you saying that. That's what this letter says.
Yeah. Right.
Well, and
It
we,
went out across the country to
Right.
hundreds of news outlets.
we know that there has been a concerted effort for at least a couple of years to try and put a gag on Sandy Widener.
Right.
This is just a continuation of that effort, and the reasons behind it are
That's
interesting.
Why is that?
Interesting to say the least.
well, but let's go back.
We start
though.
digging into it. We start finding.
We
some
go back
interesting
far
stuff.
enough, and we're going to go back to the Urban River Development Plan, back to the root it was called,
Yeah.
and I'll put it on the screen. But that is where it started. Now, if we go to what Corey Mason,
Now that goes back a ways, right?
2005, 2006, it began, and we've got some video where Corey Mason says I was involved in 2005, 2006. Now, it was initially, I think, put in as the urban plan was adopted in 2008, July of 2008.
That's when it became a viable
Right.
entity.
Prior to that, it was
just
being worked on.
discussion.
Right.
before
And
that.
I mean, and it's good. Community groups get together, put something together. Now, let's look at Corey Mason, where he was. He was a member of the Great Lakes Initiative. He was a chair. The River Alliance, now remember these names, the River Alliance of Wisconsin, he was a board member. He was also a board member on the Wisconsin Coastal Management with John Dickert. This is 2008. He was also on the Redevelopment Authority from 2005 to 2011, and he was the head of it, commissioner of that, and he was elected to the Assembly in 2006. Now, when we go into this and we look into this, now this is prior to the Rootworks plan, which was adopted for Machinery Row, but this is prior to a kind of an initial plan on the riverfront, and Corey Mason was obviously very involved in that at that point.
Now I just want to make sure. I just know Redevelopment Authority. That's the group that's spending all this money that
Correct.
controls the redevelopment. I mean,
Yes.
the intergovernmental fund.
Intergovernmental.
And Corey Mason was head of it for a while there.
For what, 6 years?
Wow, up into 2011.
Right.
So
So and you have to remember
So-
now the questions were, why is the Redevelopment Authority having that much power and able to spend these dollars without going to the Common Council? Sandy Widener brings this up in, I want to say 2012 or 14. In that period of time, she's asking the question. Well, this was all being formulated well before Machinery Row. And I think we're going to probably have to have a couple episodes on this, because we're going to get into a little bit of the depth of it and the foundation of why these emails are.
So just jump forward, fast forward
Right.
to 2018. Some of those emails, those run-of-the-mill emails, might have something to do with Machinery Row.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Let's step back just a
So
second.
now going back to 2005 or wherever we're going
Right.
to.
I want to go back to something you said, and that was about this money being spent by the RDA without council approval.
Right.
the whole thing was set up that the council would be asked for approval on all expenditures.
Right.
That they would give the approval. Over time, that became diluted.
I remember when Scott Lenny announced that in the newspaper.
And
We've been doing this just as a matter of being polite. We really don't have to ask the council
It's
for
a
any
separate,
permission. on
it's a
spending
separate
money.
corporation with a separate
Yeah.
tax ID number.
Yep, yep.
But it was intended that the council, and it was specified in the
city
all
money.
the documents, yeah.
It's taxpayer money.
Yeah,
They're high-
it's
it was
taxpayer money,
specified that
that's
the
right,
council
yeah.
would approve it, but like I said, as time went on, that power was diluted, people kind of didn't pay attention to it, and it became the city's,
a little
well, it
slush
became
fund,
the
really.
RDA's sludge fund.
Right, absolutely.
Until Sandy Widener and Eddie Deal, too, we have to give Eddie Deal credit, began asking questions like, why are we spending this money? What is it? What are the details of these expenditures that you're asking us to approve, so on and so forth? Now, I think that is where it first began, where people started looking at, well, Eddie Deal was basically run out of office.
Right.
I mean, there was a lot of money
You have
brought
to
in
remember,
to support a
any
candidate against
aldermen
him.
up to Sandy Widener were basically really going after. I mean, Eddie Deal. I mean, he went after Eddie Deal hard
Yeah.
to get him out of office. They went after
Eric Marcus.
Eric Marcus, and they went after Mike Shields. Those were sought after. To
They also
those
went
people.
after Sandy Widener big time.
Absolutely.
Big time.
Yeah, but Sandy is, I mean, he's
Oh,
tough.
yeah, she was strong enough to withstand the
Right.
onslaught.
But
yeah.
and that's why at this point we're going to seal the documents and we're going to keep her, gagged. But I want to put up the Root River Council members. Now this is another group that was somewhat associated with the development of the Root River plan. Be it there's 2 or 3 different types of plans, and they were part of it. But I'm just going to read it. There was the owner of DPW, was DP Wigley was on it. Corey Mason, of course, was on it, and a woman's named Helen. Sorry, what's this? Sorry.
Sarakinos?
Of the River
Sarakinos,
Alliance, yeah. Sarakinos was also on the River Alliance. Remember that name. And so in 2008, the Back to the Root was adopted. In 2010, Supervisor Monty Osterman moves into a building on Mound Avenue. Now, at this time,
Now, what was Monty Osterman's position other than being a member of the county board?
he was also on the, he was actually chairman of the Root River Council. So he
Now,
was
the Root River Council, now, these are all connected, right, somehow?
All
Root River
connected.
Council,
Yeah.
Yep.
It's
Machinery
confusing because there's so
Row,
many
they
names
just-
that are...
they just keep
got
renaming
River
the
in it.
project.
Right, you get
getting
mixed
new
up,
money.
but there's
Yeah.
about 3 of them, and they're all connected to development of the Root River corridor. Now, this is prior to Machinery Row, but Monty Osterman moves. It says, there's an article in the Journal Times. Osterman and Granite moved back downtown. They had been away, but now they came back. But they moved into a building downtown, but they also moved into a warehouse at 1251 Mound Avenue. Now, 3 years later, they're getting a grant to acquire those buildings on Mound Avenue, which would then put Monty Osterman in a position to benefit from relocation compensation because it was a city project. They were going to put a bike trail in. Now,
And
Now,
you
let's
think
be real clear. He is the chairman of the Root River Council,
right,
and he's also running this granite business.
correct,
The Root River Council wants to develop that land along Mound Avenue.
right.
He's aware of the desire to develop that.
He does,
He moves his business into a warehouse over there,
correct,
which he knows, or should have known, would be impacted if this development project goes through.
correct,
He lobbied very hard for this development project to go through.
absolutely.
And then eventually he was granted relocation money to
Yes.
the degree of...
Between $75,000 and $85,000. Now, he was going to say, well, and his comment in the paper was, well, I didn't know anything about, well, I have to move, and it's costly to me, and, the benefits were not, it wasn't beneficial. In the original plan, Back to the Root, which he was orchestrated and worked on, the newly developed bike path will turn right onto Mound Avenue as you're heading cast from 6th Street and continue along the top of and takes in Mound Avenue, and they're going to take Mound Avenue and acquire these properties. This will require purchase and the easements or easements of several properties. This was in 2008.
No, one of those is one of those his properties?
One of those was his. Now, this was in
Well,
2000.
it's not his. It's a property that he leased.
But
he still has an
But he knew
occupant.
it.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. He's a tenant there,
Right.
and he's still
No, he picked up
entitled to
75 to 80,
relocation
yeah,
costs.
and he
right.
picked up those dollars. But knowing that, I mean, prior to now, I'm going to play a video here of him at a common council meeting, lobbying for the grant that will pay him relocation fees.
For allowing me time tonight. Monty Osterman, County Board Supervisor and Chair of the Root River Council. You've heard some things tonight about the Root Works plan and kind of how it started. It started back in 2006 with those conversations. But they weren't just any conversations. They actually led to initiative, they led to something progressive, they led to something happening. What you have here along this Root River urban corridor is the single greatest opportunity that we have had ever to create an economic engine in this economy or even in modern Racine.
That's an interesting point that he makes. That was from what date was that?
That was March 4th of 2014.
2014, so that's 4 years ago. And my question is, where's the engine? Where's the development? Where are the people who have been attracted to the community by this effort? Don't tell me that it's people like us talking about what a terrible project this is that has caused it to be a dismal failure. I think it fell under its own weight. And it's produced nothing thus far, and I don't see what kind of promise it holds in the future. Do we want to finish watching anything else now? Or
And it would be a shame to not take advantage of leveraging $1 to get $2 to continue to make the plan a reality. This plan, in its full implementation, will be the largest development ever to occur in Racine. This is how you generate income. This is how you generate business. This is what causes people to want to move here. Developers want to move here because something is happening. They don't just show up. Nobody comes to a dance without music and a band and a stage. You have to build the infrastructure first to allow them to come. It's not new. It's something that we've been doing, something we've been working toward. Corey's been working on it for 8 years now. This is one time when you have an opportunity to work toward the betterment of our community and use the grant dollars to do it with some of our own.
Okay.
So that brings in Corey Mason.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Corey Mason's in the same room. Monty Osterman is lobbying for the grant that will pay him. He's a county board supervisor. That was never brought up in this lobbying effort that he was going to benefit from the fact that he was a tenant on the Mound Avenue, which they were collecting the dollars for. And Corey Mason was sitting in the pew, had already spoke or was going to speak after. He knows that Monty was part of and knew that there was going to be a bike trail there and knew that Monty was benefiting from this, but yet he sat there. He sat there and watched that. So you have to look back far enough to say, why are we keeping quiet? Because there's so much.
Why are we shutting the city down? Yeah,
Right.
why all the secrecy in the city?
So when we go, and from this point, I wanted to build, the foundation to say, there's things beyond Machinery Row that went back. So we have to build that foundation. And I think on the next couple episodes, we're going to start moving into some fairly shocking stuff that comes out as we move forward. But we have to understand, this isn't just something that developed here. And why is the city of Racine struggling? Because we're always creating some kind of a corrupt environment. That's why. Why, if you don't have corruption, you're going to flourish. People understand that. Developers understand that. Why has some of these developers said, "Oh, we're going to, this developer's coming." I'll tell you why those developers aren't coming, because they looked at it and said, "I don't want to get mixed up in that muck, because that's only going to drag me down." Anytime the political muck is there, those guys, they're interested in making money. They're not interested in getting into politics. They have to a certain degree, but when there's a question, I can go here. Why do I have to go there? Kenosha's been successful, Oak Creek has been successful, Franklin's been successful, Milwaukee downtown has been successful. Why is Racine not successful?
good question. And I think we know the answer.
Okay.
It's a great implementation. It's a great leverage. Please support this initiative. Thank you.
All right, now my understanding is as a result of these shenanigans that Monty Osterman was doing, setting up putting a warehouse there so he could get this $80,000 in relocation costs, there was actually an ethics file, a complaint against him, and is that right?
Yes, there was.
And where did that get filed, with the city, or was it the county, or where was that? How was that filed?
That was.
It was filed with the county, and it was filed by Mr. Tim Elmer, who was a part of the Racine Equality Project, which at that time I was the chairman of.
Right.
You were also very involved.
Right.
And the complaint was that Monty Osterman did not reveal what his involvement was with that project and how he stood to gain by things that he was lobbying for as a public official. He was not disclosing things as he would be required by law to do. Now, that complaint was filed with the county government. And sometime later, let's see, this was in June 26, 2014, there's a story in the Journal-Times about that complaint being filed. And then sometimes later...
July 9th, it was, now you gotta remember, 4th of July fell in there, they dismissed it 5-0, and there was no violations found. I don't care who looks at this, you can see that there was, obviously he lobbied for, totally against the ethics, totally financial disclosure was essential for a public official when they are benefiting from city and county dollars. And that did not happen. And that was an ethics violation. I'll stand by that. And I think most people outside of Racine would, Racine government. But that is actually part of it. Now, there's other things that happen, but this we can relate to Machinery Row, which is, again, as we're moving along here, you're going to see how this all kind of ties itself back.
Well, we're getting into deeper levels,
right,
that's behind all this secrecy. This is these run-of-the-mill emails contain information that leads back into this, and it keeps bringing it up and bringing it up like Sandy Widener did, and like we keep doing. And somebody wants, well, those people up there want it buried. Just shut it down.
Well, George, if you have an opportunity to go through all the emails, I mean, the story's there. And I'm sure it was not just Sandy Weiner. I'm sure it's Eddie Deal, and there's some other emails there that are going to start putting this together. And we do have some of those emails that we're going to bring forth here that are going to talk about the story. And some of these emails are outside of the city, that have been discussions between owners of the property and tenants of the property, and we're able to get to put this picture together. But this is the start of it. Now, it's gone to the ethics complaint. The ethics complaint now is thrown out by the county. We don't see anything. We stuck our head in the sand. The attorney for the county just looked the other direction. I mean, there's not enough pressure from the Racine Equality Project. But now there's an awful lot of pressure from outside sources, particularly newspapers and persons that are concerned about open records. So now the pressure's on. But this is stuff that should have been looked at 10 years ago, and it wasn't. And then this continues to fester. And if I got away with it this time, I can do something else. Well, what that does is takes a community and puts them in a disadvantage to other communities, and that's really what I think has happened here. But let's move on.
There's been millions of dollars spent.
Correct.
And to date, really, you have nothing to show for it.
No. And of course, there's always the next dream around the corner, and the newspaper has some new dream coming around the corner, but nothing ever happens because...
Well, and there's always a sense of urgency, too, about why we have to approve the spending of these funds, why this money has to be spent in order to create this great, inviting atmosphere to bring people into Racine, to bring developers into Racine, to bring more citizens into Racine, more taxpayers, etc., etc. And this has been going on for many years now, and there are no results. Except for the fact that money has left the coffers.
With all that private-public cooperation, was there ever any private money put into any of this?
I don't have any recollection of
any
private
money.
It's
all been city money, state money.
Right.
Yeah, there's been various grants and things like that. But there's a talk about $50,000, and which will lead to more money being contributed, was all just about state money, and it was all just about studies.
Right. Exactly.
There was never a shovel put in the ground to start the digging of a foundation.
Well, speaking of studies, I mean, this is the study right here about Machinery Row, is it?
Right. So
and
now,
this was ran up with the cost of what, $400,000?
That was Vanderwall and Associates out of Madison. Now, Corey Mason introduces. Now we're a step forward. Now the ethics complaint is passed. The next step is Monty Osterman is moved into the area. Rootworks is coming in now, and they're moving on Mound Avenue. They're going to get some grants from the state, and they're going to purchase these buildings along here. Well, Rootworks comes along, off of the other plans, and Rootworks is put together by Vanderwall and Associates. Now, here's where this is in 2012. Now, this is the initial plan, and it's adopted by the Common Council, and there's nothing wrong with the plan. I mean, if that's what the community wants, yeah, it'd be great. Corey Mason introduces Rodney Blackwell to Dickard in 2011. So this is where it came. It came from Madison. Dickard really, everything's John Dickard was involved, but John Dickard was really just kind of a, I guess we'd call him, there was
cheerleader, kind of.
Well, the dummy, the straw man and the dummy, were basically in place, and they came in, and Vanderwall came in. Now, Vanderwall put this project together, was paid $400,000. Again, Corey Mason's involved heavily in this. He lobbies for it, and then we're not up to the point that Blackwell has initiated a project. But we're announcing the machinery row, but we're prior to that. We're on this building block. What's the property, what's available, and next show will come into a little bit of that building of the machinery row machine that is going to move forward. But one of the interesting things about this in the election that was just held with Corey Mason, some of the contributors to Corey Mason's campaign were Vanderwalls out of Madison, and they contributed the maximum amount between him and his wife. I got it. And Helen, how do you pronounce it again? What was her name again?
Sarakinos.
Sarakinos. She was another. Now that was the Root River Alliance. They also have donated to it. Now they have benefited from the root works and the corridor plan. So all this ties together. All the players are all the same. They just kind of move them around a little bit, but. We kind of go back again to why Corey Mason is not discussing the emails, why Corey Mason is not discussing or standing up and saying, this is wrong, and our city attorney, because we're going to dig into that. Why is the city attorney taking such efforts to keep this stuff silent? Because there's a lot more to it.
And behind that, of course, is shutting Sandy Widener down. Just keeping her quiet.
Sandy is really a spoke in a wheel, really. That's kind of like, or a rusty chain, I mean, she's making too much noise on this machine moving forward.
Yeah. Just quiet down, Alderman Widener. We've had everything under control.
So, I mean, and I realize that a lot of attention gets focused on her, but she really is not there's a lot more to it. She just happens to be the one that,
Well, she's the one that's willing to have an open government. She feels that her constituents should know about it.
Right.
And that's rare. I think other aldermen might not mind being open, but they aren't smart enough to figure out what's going on.
Or one of the things, and I think, as I'm going through these older videos, Michael Shields back, I don't know, maybe 2012 or early, maybe 2011, said, we're dumped on this information so quickly. We don't have time to digest it. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. And that's a technique used when you're a con.
That's why any development should be given to the council of the whole. We should look at the total package and then make a decision. We get half the information and we make decision because it's an emergency situation. We're going to lose money, and we all got all these guilt trips that's thrown on us, and that's unfair. We need to have the exact information, and we need to take our time about doing it. We don't want to destroy anything that's going to improve the quality of this city, but we need to take our time and do it and make sense out of what we do.
I remember them saying, well, if we don't take care of this right now, Kenosha's going to come in. And
they're going to get the arena, they're going to get machinery road.
We got to do it. Hurry up. These funds, everybody wants these funds. We have an opportunity to get it, but we have to do it now.
Yeah, that was exactly what they did with the arena. John Dickard came out and said, there's only room for one arena in this area. Exactly. And if we don't build it, Kenosha's going to build it. We've got to get this thing built. We've got to commit to it. We've got to spend some money now.
Yeah. Just hurry up.
By the way, where is that Kenosha arena?
Well, I'm sure it's in the works, George.
We dropped the ball, they were going to get it.
Yeah,
right?
You would think that they would pick it up and run with it.
Anyway, but I think that's really where I think this is a foundation that's set up, because we started to talk when we looked at this email from Bill Luters from the Freedom of Information Council. Where is Corey? And why is Corey not speaking up? I mean, if you got nothing to hide, speak up.
Yeah.
But I think there's plenty to hide. And I know it spurts off into different directions, but this one here can go back 10 years ago. And you can kind of see the pattern here and how it's kind of developing into it. And we can get into the tax credits, and we're going to get into some emails, and we're going to get into the Blackwell and his association with Machinery Row, because he really wasn't a developer of Machinery Row. I mean, at one point he maybe had a flicker of something happening, but
a little tingle down his leg about the project.
Right, but
that was
realistically, it was all orchestrated by the city.
Yeah.
And the relocation of the tenants that, some are saying that was the forerunner of Foxconn, and how that eminent domain and how that was handled, and we're just going to push all this through.
Well, isn't it kind of amazing
God,
that how
it just
easily
keeps
Monty
getting
Osterman
bigger.
got his relocation costs, and none of the
problem.
people at Machinery Row could get it?
No,
And
no,
it
they've
is-
been
there- now,
stonewalled. In
is there
fact,
a big-
they
is
were
there a
not
big
even
difference between the
No,
two?
they're 100 yards apart. 100 yards from this building
mean-
to this building, but
I
we
mean,
don't know about it over
He's
here.
talking about the people.
No, I was thinking about their situation.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, okay. Yeah.
He, Monty Osterman was a tenant. These other people were tenants.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is there some distinguishing thing that anybody knows about that?
No.
One guy
Well, none
goes through.
of the other ones are public officials.
No,
Rick Olson,
well,
Sam
yeah, there you
Azarian,
go.
Patrick Fagan, Gita Jensen, none of them are public officials.
Yeah.
But
So
even
there's a
that,
distinction.
there's some stuff that goes on even in those buildings, and how each one is handled. I mean, one
Yeah.
is paid considerably more than the others, and why? Why is that one paid $900,000 more over assessed value than Azarian, Olson?
Who received less than
You're,
assessed
you're
value.
getting into but besides,
there's
that,
so
besides
much.
the relocation, yeah,
Right.
that was one messed up.
Now it's a difficult.
And it started with the $50,000 back when it was called the Back to the Root, or
Right.
whatever it was,
Yeah.
in 2008.
I mean, this has been a 10-year.
Come right up to
Disaster.
where we've become a national phenomenon now, and
Right.
shutting down a open records request and making it totally secret.
So, I mean, a lot of the questions are from the media. Basically, I mean, even Racine has now jumped on board asking about how much it's costing, but a lot of the questions are, what's in those emails? Those emails will probably be somewhat like, well, there's really nothing here, all that. There's a few things in there, and some of it's probably scathing to a degree, but the fact is that those emails will relate to other emails, which will relate to a lot of different things.
yeah, the
And,
email
yeah,
itself may
that's-
not say that much you're saying,
Yeah.
but what it infers to
It's
could mean a lot.
linking a chain.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. What it talks about. Well, what's he mean by that in that
Exactly.
email? You know.
Exactly. So,
Well, anyway, this is issue one
Yeah.
of the current, probably a 3-part series it's
Yeah.
going to take to cover all of this. And we're just some flies in the ointment, and you are too now, because you've become party to this information. So be vigilant. I mean, look some of this stuff up. Do a little bit of research on your own. You're going to be fascinated by what you
and
find.
I'm going to put some of this stuff on the website, so
Yeah.
you go to the video, and then under it'll be links where you can catch on to the ethics complaint and some of the articles that have been written along.
And it's
the way.
all public documents. It's nothing that we created or made up.
We don't have
It's
to
all-
seal
Yeah,
anything.
we don't have to seal anything.
How many
So-
millions of dollars has it gotten up to?
Well, I estimate we're probably
Yeah.
zeroing in close to $15 million.
Yeah.
15 mil.
Yeah.
And,
I mean,
and there's a significant amount of relocation dollars that are going to come due.
right. And we
Which they've been
issued
denying.
initially, when we first started this, we kind of came at the back of the project, I guess you'd say, and we started to piece it together. Well, now I want to get to the front of the project,
Yeah.
and we started to move it through. And really,
The back
some-
of the project being the
Machinery Row,
where
and
it's
at the
being
end,
catered-
when we found out that the interest payments were not paid by, well, it was a kickback of the money, the slush
and you're
fund
saying there was a lot more before that.
before that, yeah.
Oh, it's kind of like
At the front.
you come home
At
from
the front.
vacation,
Okay.
you walk into your house and you go, what is that smell? And you start following it until you find something. Well, we're finding things. So come back and join us next Monday, and we'll talk some more about this. We really appreciate you being here. We hope you have a wonderful day from this point forward. So say good morning to the good people.
Good morning. Have a good day.